Hey, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to a special edition of Tall Tales with Taco. I'm your host, Mitch Taco Bell. I'm a retired Marine Lieutenant Colonel, and I got to tell you, tonight is going to be fantastic. And I know I always say that, but you guys don't understand. As a Marine, some of the most fierce fighting ever performed by the Marine Corps was in the Pacific against the Japanese, a very, very harsh enemy, and one that just never gave up, never surrendered. Um, and within the Marine Corps, you have so many Marines that see our iconic flag raising by Joe Rosenthal, and they have it everywhere. They have it up on posters, they have it on paintings on their wall. I mean, it is everywhere because it means so much to us. The Battle of Iwo Jima represented the Marine Corps for another, I'd say, 500 years. Um, when you think about uncommon valor as a common virtue, these guys were uncommon and doing things that were just above and beyond the call of duty. Every hour, every minute, they struggled on that island. As a matter of fact, out of the 75,000 troops, 75,000 combined troops between all of the divisions, we lost over 4,000 men. And we had another incredible, like 19,000 casualties from that battle on the island. Folks, it wasn't easy. And tonight I have Fred Harvey. Fred is 97 years old. He is a survivor of Iwo Jima and many other battles in Solomon Islands and some of the other places that he went to before he got back and reformed into the 5th Division. This is going to be a very interesting, worthwhile listen. So if you are a Marine or if you know a Marine, go ahead, forward this link to him because you don't want to miss this. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring to you Coach T. Fred Harvey. I sat next to him 5 years ago at a veterans event. He had this book. I bought it. And I got to tell you, his book is incredible. So if you can go on Amazon and buy it, it's called Hell Yes, I Would Do It Again, right here. And you can get it on Amazon. The thing about this book is that it brings you to tears, and the next chapter has you laughing, rolling over, laughing. So you never know what you're going to get. It is incredible. If you like it, make comments. Go ahead. We'll have questions at the end. Share, like, comment, and here we go with Fred. How are you?
I'm fine.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but I'm not too proud of what you said about Amazon. They sell my book and I don't make a dime off of it.
Oh, well, I didn't know how they get it. Tell us how they can get it from you.
They can write to me.
Um, I know you're moving to Kerrville tomorrow. Do we have your address?
No.
I tell you what, Fred, we'll get your address. I will go back into the description of the show that gets shared and propagated, and everyone will have your address. They can personally write to you to get your book. How about that? I just
I'll buy that.
All right, we'll do that, man, because I everyone's got to read your book, sir. I I got to tell you, you had me up to a point of tears, and I'm sitting there pulling my glasses off and wiping my eyes. And then the next chapter, you got me laughing about crawling under, your house and face to face with a rattlesnake. You know,
Yeah.
it's a fantastic book, and it's really a well done, well written book of your whole life, which is fascinating on its own. All the things that you've accomplished, but I've listened to you at the Marine Metroplex, and I just need to shut up. You tell us some stories. How about that?
Which
Tell
story
us
you want?
join.
Which story do you want to hear?
All right, joining the Marine Corps and getting on the train and going out to California, and then go ahead, start with that.
Well, I lived in Odessa, Texas. Now I grew up uh, in Abilene. Then we moved to Odessa, Texas. So when I joined the Marine Corps, we had to go to Dallas to get uh, inducted in. Well, they said, we're going. The conductor told me, he said, we're going to stop in Odessa because the band and all your schoolmates and everything are there to meet you. There were three of us met there at that time. Well, when we got there, I was getting hugged and kissed by pretty girls. And I started to go over the hill right then, just stay at home. These
You
girls,
didn't even have to
know,
go to war, man. Hey, the chance of wearing dress blues, I'm gonna be good to go.
well, I dropped out of school first semester of freshman year because I knew I couldn't pass English, so I just went ahead and dropped out of school and joined the Marine Corps. Well, when we got through at Dallas, we going on that train. That conductor said, "Hey, the band from your high school and all your classmates are out there to meet you, and we're going to stay there for a while. Just stop the train." So I got off there and I was getting hugged and kissed by girls I never dreamed would ever even look at me.
Yeah, well, we're actually going to get back to that because in your book you had a story about a young lady that you dated, and I found a picture of this young lady. This is a young lady that you dated in high school. That's Barbara Payton. You remember that?
Barbara Payton, slightly.
Yeah, that is the young lady you dated when you were growing up in high school, and you brought her back after the party, and you guys had a little bit too much of somebody had spiked the punch. So you date some pretty women there, sir.
Well, uh, it was the Ace of Clubs, and we went out there, and at that time, we were dancing, jitterbugging, and I was hot and bothered, and this Barbara was just doing the same thing, and she said something, and we went outside. She wanted to get out some fresh air. Well, behind the Ace of Clubs, there was a little puddle of water because they used evaporated uh, cooling systems, and that water drained off and down there. And we were standing around out there. We were about 20 of us were standing around there. And one guy said, "Fred Harvey, you're supposed to be a real good swimmer. Let me see you swim across that puddle there." And and I, well, I took the dare, and so I just dove out in that water, just splashing. I drank too much gin while I was drinking.
Jen.
We were out there dancing hard and everything. We was drinking a lot of 7 Up, and I
Uh,
didn't drink, but they was they were pouring gin in that 7 Up and giving it to me, and I wound up, drunk. Well, anyway, she drank the same time I did. And so I dove in that puddle of water, just splashed out there and all over in front of her. And splash, she hit the water right next to me. And here we both were, and they tried to clean us up and so forth. So one of the guys worked at the funeral home there in Odessa. He drove a ambulance when they had to go, and he had a room there. And so they took us over there to the house where the apartment that he lived in, and we got cleaned up, and then I got sleepy, and Barbara got sleepy, so they had this room in the garage where they sold caskets from, and so they put me in a casket and put me to sleep. And I was up on a couple of bars, pretty high, about 5 feet off the deck. And they put her in another one below because she was as, as drunk as me.
right. So you guys were laying in caskets. You wake up next morning. You're a little bit late getting her home, right?
Yeah. Well, I woke up and one of the guys had a car, and he said, "You take her home." He was about half asleep. So it was still, the sun hadn't come up yet. So we drove up there, and man, her mother came out there, and she was cussing and fussing and everything. And her husband came out and said, "Come on in the house." And so we headed up to the house, and I was stumbling around, and of course Barbara was doing the same thing. And so we sit in a swing there for a while, swing on the front porch. And uh, after we sit there for a while, well, she had a breakfast ready for him, right? And
They made you breakfast, and you lived another day. Dad did not shoot you. You are an amazing man.
yeah, well, when I got ready to leave, her dad, mother was doing all the talking and everything. She was fussing or cussing me. Well, anyway, we got ready to leave, got up from the table. He said, "Fred, you know, you can date Barbara anytime you want to from now on." And the mother said, "Oh, well, she really let me have it, and him too." He said it took a lot of nerve and a different kind of person or something like that. He said,
Mhm.
because if I'd have brought Barbara home, I would have just driven up here, parked, and threw her out and drive off. He said, but you stayed here and helped get her into the house. And it took a guy with a lot of character to do that. So you can date my daughter anytime you want to.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, Fred, tell us. You went out in boot camp at that time. You joined in 1942, if I remember right. You're 18.
Yeah.
Boot camp was what? How long? 6 weeks?
Beg your pardon?
How long was boot camp for you out there in California?
It was a long time, but I think it was something like 5 or 6 weeks and everything. And I learned quite a bit. Well, when I got there, I wore a size 5.5 shoe, and the Marine Corps didn't have shoes that small, and so I slept on the top bunk in the deal, and I wore those old shoes that I had, learning how to march and all of that,
Mhm.
and those store-bought shoes didn't last very long. I had big old holes in the sole of them and everything. One moment I woke up, picked up my shoes, and had been full soled, and it looked like you cut the rubber out of a truck tire. And that's what I finished boot camp in.
They
Those,
never got you actual boots to use, boondockers or anything.
well, I, I volunteered for the paratroopers, So they
Hmm.
took me out there, and I wore the shoes for about 2 days. And the, the drill master came up and he said, "You wear a size 5.5 shoe?" I said, "Yeah." "Well, here's a pair of six size, and try them on." So I tried them on. That's what I went through parachute school. Those, but being a paratrooper, you had to wear boots,
Right.
and so they got me a pair of boots that fit me perfectly, and so I was real
S-
happy with the boots and everything.
So how much did you weigh? You 5.5 foot. You must have been. You seem kind of tall to me when I saw you.
I weighed 105 pounds, and then I was out there and eating good food and everything. And when we finished there, uh, well, I had some bad luck at jump school. They were going to drop me out because they thought I was too small
Hmm.
and didn't know how to operate a parachute and everything.
We had a couple near calls, if I remember right.
Yeah. But what was happening when we'd come out of the door, we'd go down a line holding the line in our static line too on a cable, and we'd turn and dive out that door. We dove out head first. The Army jumped out feet first, but we jumped out. Uh, and I asked the drill master, I said, why don't we jump feet first? He said, well, when you jump and that parachute opens, you swing. You don't get a jar out of it. You swing out on the thing. And so I was having trouble. The first jump that I tried to make or did make was nearly a catastrophe.
Uh-huh.
When I jumped, I was coming out head first, and I looked back and I saw the plane as it pulled away.
Uh-huh.
If I jumped out, the Marines, we dove out of the chute head first, But I turned and I'm looking at the plane, and my static line was coming out between my legs. And then when I hit the end of that static line, my chute opened and it jerked me around. Well, they couldn't figure out what was wrong, They didn't know what was going on. Well, the second jump, I went through it and it knocked me down. And as I went through the door, and I was turned around and went out back head first again. And so on the third jump, one of the sergeants said, I'm going to go up and see what's happening with Harvey. Mm-hmm. Why he's coming out there so poorly. Well, they found out that the guy behind me was right behind me, and everything. And I'd go down there and hit the end of the line, square off, and dive out. Well, he was going down there. When he got close, he would cut across and go through the door, and sometimes he'd hit me and knock me to the side of the door. And so we got that straightened out. So the last three jumps I made was perfect,
Well, the one jump I love was you had to maintain so many jumps once a month or whatever to keep your $50 a month, which was a big deal.
Yeah,
$50 extra month flight pay, and that guy took you up and you guys dove at like 800 feet and you landed on the chow hall. Tell that story.
Oh, we went out. We were supposed to jump at sunup, so they had us on this old plane. Now, the Marine Corps didn't even have a plane. We had to borrow that from the Army. It was in full shape, an old DC-3. Well, we were supposed to go out 10 miles offshore, come around, and come back in and land about 2 miles beyond the beach.
Mm-hmm. And where was this?
New Caledonia.
Okay.
Well, we went through the routine and everything, and we pulled up, and the jump master jumped us too soon.
Uh-huh.
And so when we jumped, when I went through the door, I thought I was going to hit that tree before my chute opened up there. We was that low. Man,
right.
And then I looked down there, and first thing I know, I'm standing on a Quonset hut, one of those 10 Quonset huts,
Yeah.
And all the other guys another guy got on the other end of the Quonset hut. My parachute got tangled up in one of the air pipes or something that came out of the top of that deal. So I just cut myself off the chute with my K-bar knife because I was all tangled up and that parachute was wrapped around that. So I took my K-bar knife and just cut myself off that thing, slid off the thing. Well, when we were landing right there, there was a bunch of black soldiers, that were lined up going into the chow hall of the Quonset hut. Some of them were out there. Well, when we landed, they all scattered because they didn't know but what we were Japanese landing.
You're lucky nobody shot you.
Yeah. So I I was free and I got up and I saw one of those guys when he was running dropped his mess kit down there.
Uh-huh.
And so I picked up that mess gear, and went and got in line right there. And the guy said, "Where'd you come from?" Oh, I said, "I just dropped in for breakfast." And right there, and they filled up my can, my deal that I found on the ground.
Uh-huh.
And then some of the other guys came on in. They got them a tray and ate on the tray. But we had to wash those things. So I was washing my mess kit and everything. I didn't want to leave it dirty.
Yeah.
Then we had to wait there until the lieutenant came to get us.
Not bad. Not bad.
Oh,
What was you'd written about a mission going out on a recon patrol with some guys looking for the Japanese on the other end of the island.
yeah.
Was that like probably one of your first patrols? Do you recall?
Well, I was in on two other invasions before that. That was, and the first one was, 97 years old. My memory's kind of bad.
Oh yeah, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You don't need to come up with names or anything like that. It's just
Well, we went to this island and invaded the first action we were in, and and we landed and went in there, and some Japs pinned us down. Well, it was. I guess we was there about 12 o'clock, and they were attacking and so forth. And so they started playing music, and the guy on the guy would come, and he knew a little bit about English, and what they were doing. We didn't know it. I didn't know it, rather. That they were hollering and screaming that the Japs were, trying to get us to come out, So we were taught, you stay in your foxhole until it's light. You don't get out and walk around because we have guards out there and we expect to be infiltrated by Japanese. Well, they kept us up all night hollering and screaming, and every once in a while throw a hand grenade over there in our area.
Uh-huh.
So the next morning, when they turned us loose, we went after those Japs. And they had, I forgot to tell you, they had captured one of our guys and had tied him up, and they would torture him, make him holler and scream, because they really wanted him over. And so we found him. He's dead. They killed him and everything. His guts were open and everything.
Yeah.
What they had been doing was tied him to that tree and make him scream and holler to get us to come out after him, so they could ambush us.
Right.
And so I looked at him, and so the Japs had pulled skin off of him, torturing him,
Mm-hmm.
And they had cut his penis off and put it in his mouth. Man, when we saw that, we went after that Jap. We just ran after him, caught a lot of them, and come. And we got the best of them out there. But man, that scared me when I saw that. That guy with that, made
Kind of make a vow that you're never going to get captured alive, right?
That's right. I decided I wasn't going to be captured after seeing that.
Tell about that. Tell about the patrol. You guys had gone up the beach. I found that interesting.
Which island was it on?
New Caledonia, maybe. And you guys had gone up, or was it Guadalcanal? And you guys had gone up the beach, and the one guy wanted to walk down along the river. PT 109.
Oh, well,
Kennedy's PT boat. You all were looking for survivors for the missing PT boat.
yeah. Well, we went up there and looked around. Well, uh, we was close to a Japanese camp, and there's just a few of us, but there's must have been 2 or 3 battalions camped out there. So we were there. We landed real early in the dark, and so we was going to wait until daylight before we moved in further. We
Hmm.
knew the Japs were camped out up there about a half a mile further up the beach, And so I had a bowel movement. So I went over there and I uh, did my bowel movement, found me a relief. We didn't have any toilet paper, so we had to use leaves or something, to clean ourselves. So I was under there and they gave the word to go. And man, I was up there and didn't get my job done, and everything. And so the guys had left, gone, So I came out there at that big tree. I looked up there and there was a Jap coming down the side of it. He was on one of those vines, in the street. And so he bent over to pick up his shoes or something anyway. But I had this, uh, I had my rifle there and I hit him. I guess I hit his arm. I hit him. I was trying to aim for his head, but I hit his arm. When I hit his arm, he twisted around there, and it was a girl, a young
Really?
Japanese girl, and everything. And so, I was trying to apologize and so forth, but I had to go, and I finally left. So we went up there we was gone about 30 minutes. So I went back to find her, and apologize, but she was gone. So
Right.
we went up there. She had been under the tree that I was under. There was no, no, they wasn't in the tree, but there was uh, a shack out there. It was up on stilts,
Stilts. Hmm.
about 7 or 8 feet deep. And I went in there, and it was just a Jap camp, and we found a lot of stuff, souvenirs. But I didn't collect souvenirs. I just passed them up. But some of the guys took them, and
Were you ever
they
worried about booby traps? Because I know they booby trap stuff.
well, they didn't have time to do that then
Uh,
because we came in so fast, and we were just a battalion, and we'd run into about 3 Japanese divisions who
hmm.
were up there, and they came out and they pinned us down, machine gun fire. So we were there, and me and Whitey Main were on the very end of our lines, and there's we called in help, and there's an army base right there
Hmm.
uh, on the other end of the island where we were, Bougainville. Well, anyway, they were Japanese were coming down from their camp. They estimated there was probably more than a division was there, and we was in real trouble.
Yeah.
So the Marines would send up uh, uh, planes. I mean, they'd send up planes, trying to protect us, but we didn't have about 6 planes there. So we
Hmm.
asked the Army to help us, and they had to call MacArthur, and he was over in Australia, and we had to get his permission to get those uh, Army planes to come out and help us, because there was a plane going, another was waiting, and everything.
Yeah.
And he said, "No, the Marines can handle it right there." So the commander of that base, Army commander, he said, "To hell with that." So he had planes flying. They were coming there fast. So Whitey Mains and I was on the very end, and that's where they would start their strafing as they'd come up there. But I got out there and I waved at him and everything like that. He waggled his wings, and after that they came in and and they had told us, uh, they wanted us to wave something to where we were, and then we would get up there and wave, and then they would get right on by us just a little bit and start strafing again. Those planes were just in the air all day long. Well, it wasn't all day; it was 6 or 7 hours.
Uh-huh.
And they finally got Higgins boats in there and got us off. But
Was that also the same campaign where you got a ride in the back of a P-38 Lightning?
yeah,
Tell
well,
about that. I mean, not many people get a ride in the back of a P-38, but this was a trainer version
yeah.
that didn't have the radio set up.
Well, it was a plane, but the P-38 was my favorite plane because I saw one. They were hauling one through Odessa, pulling it on a little trailer, and it had the wings turned inside on it. And I saw that plane and the two motors. Man, and so I was always looking for a P-38.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we got to that new island, uh, it was New Caledonia. That's where we were training, and waiting. Well, anyway, there was an airstrip over there real close to where we lived. So I would go over there to that airstrip and hang around.
Uh-huh.
And I saw an old P-38. So I trotted down there to it, and it was dusty. And I was crawling up on it. I thought, well, this airplane is just too old to fly, so it's just parked here. So I was looking at that and everything and really enjoying it. And a Jeep come rolling up there real fast. And the guy got out and come up there to me, and I thought he was going to, thought I was trying to damage that plane. They didn't know what it was, the Japanese.
Uh-huh.
And so when he got up there, he said, he's going to fly. And I said, really, you can fly this plane? It's dusty and everything. I thought it was probably. He said, no, I'll fly this plane. It's well and good and everything. He said, you want to go with me?
Yeah.
Well, heck, there's just one seat in that plane and everything. He said, we've modified this. If you want to go with us, we'll. So he sent that guy back to get a parachute, for me.
Uh-huh.
So I got in there.
Well, he saw your jump boots, so he knew you were a certified jumper.
Yeah, he knew I was a paratrooper. Well, anyway, I had to sit right up behind. They'd taken the radio out of the plane and made us kind of a seat place there because they flew people a lot of times with it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, anyway, here I am sitting about like this, and his helmet was right about here, I just right above him and everything. So we're up there, man. I was strapped in, but I still had to lean down like that.
Mm-hmm.
I got sick. And I vomited. It went all down this side of his thing, his helmet and everything.
Oh.
And I was trying to tell him I was sorry, and he waved me off and just wiped it off and everything. Didn't bother him at all.
So did he do some loops and some aerobatics with you?
Oh yeah, every time I get on a ship, well, I'll tell you, when we left the States, we got on the ships real early, but I was on an early group that went aboard this ship, and it turned out to be an old Dutch cattle ship.
Uh-huh.
This Dutchman was hauling cattle from Australia up there to one of the islands that we had a bunch of people living there and everything. They were taking cattle up there, for those people to buy and everything.
So you guys were on the ship. Did you get seasick on the ship?
Well, of course. Well, I digress. The only ship I was ever on that didn't get seasick. It was an LST, and we were on a trip up the islands, and I was on this LST, and I thought, God, I'm gonna really get sick on this. I didn't get sick at all. I
Really?
went over to the captain, and the captain was a 21-year-old guy that had just graduated from college, and they made him
Wow.
a captain of that ship. So he was telling me, he said, this LST has a round bottom on it,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't sway back and forth like that. He says that drifting back and forth is what makes you sick. So I wasn't sick at all on that thing. So I was always hoping that every time we go over to see, that looks like the same plane I rode. Well, it it took us up to another island and dropped us off, but I never did get seasick on that island.
Well, when you got back, did you feel off that plane ride? Were you wasted the rest of the day from the aerobatics or being sick, or were you able to function? Do you remember?
Well, I had to function. I'm having an Alzheimer's moment here. We had this captain, Major Fagan, lock him up Fagan, we called him.
Uh-huh.
Man, he was tough on us. I mean, he drove us. We was the only battalion that was driven like that. The other battalions out there, they got to sleep late. But Fagan had us up early in the morning. And he heard that an Army group had done a 50-mile hike in record time and everything. And so he took us on a hike to beat that. We beat that. He'd make us run 50 yards and walk 50 yards. And we
Jeez.
broke that record that they had made. Fagan, man, I was scared to death of him. If I saw him coming, I'd dive in the bushes out there to get away from him.
Well, I mean, as tough as he was it fair? I mean, were you guys battle ready when you first were tested?
Yeah, we were battle ready. We were ready to get in. We'd have gone to hell to fight if we had to under him.
Yeah.
Well, let me tell you, one of the guys had, we could get some kind of candy at the PX, or it wasn't a PX, but they sold us some candy bars that didn't melt in the heat,
Mm-hmm.
So I went over and I bought about 6 of them, I was going to put them in my pack and everything. So I was going down. It was one of our guys that got in trouble, and he was in the brig. Fagan put him in the brig. All it was a tent and a barbed wire entanglement around it right there. So I was eating my candy bar and went over there, and he was on bread and water. And that was all they was feeding him, bread and water.
What'd you guys call that? Punk something punk. The bread and water, they called it punk and spunk, or I can't remember.
Yeah, I forget some punk. Well, anyway, I had those 3 candy bars, and I was eating one right there. And this guy taught me into throwing him one. So I said, okay, I will. So I threw one over, and Fagan had seen me. He said, Corporal of the Guard, lock this man up. Man, they came up there, and the guy come running out there, some corporal. He said, put this guy in that tent with that one, the other guy. And this guy said, well, sir, we put all the cots and everything aboard ship because we was going to pull out pretty quick, like, you know. And so he said, okay, take this guy out and put him in there in his place. And so here I was in the brig, and that guy went over. Well, I just dropped my three candy bars on the deck right there. And I hollered at him. I said, hey, throw me one of those bars over. He said, I can't do that. That's against the law. And I mean, he finally threw a candy bar over there to me.
uh,
And I got it. And man, it was the best candy bar I ever ate. I
yeah.
got hungry.
Buddy is only half a word sometimes, huh?
Yeah.
So, so
Yeah.
you guys, the paratroopers, the paramarines, you guys were disbanded with Carlson's Raiders and sent back to the States, right?
Uh,
I mean they got rid of the paramarines?
yeah, they had because when Nimitz, you know, he said, well, MacArthur had his bunch to jump in Australia,
Hmm.
practice jump, you know. So they were up to the thing. They found a beautiful lawn up there. It was about 300 or 400 square feet, uh, square yard, big place. Looked like a beautiful lawn. So
Hmm.
he took his troops up there and jumped them. They landed in that thing that was 12 foot high sword grass. And it ruined their parachutes. The guys, some of them missed the grass and landed in the trees. And there were two guys that jumped. They never did find any, or
Really?
they, and as far as I know, uh, they just got lost and died out there because two of them were lost.
Yeah.
Well, we had to march out, and we had to go over the mountain range there, and it took them about 4 weeks to get back to their base, and two guys died along the way, and they couldn't land anywhere, you know, to pick them up and fly them. They had to march out over.
Hmm.
This is MacArthur doing, you
Right.
know.
Right. Hey, let me
Anyway,
ask if Myers is back there. It looks like your headset's slipping. You want to rotate your headset and put the band on the top there? Might
oh,
keep it from slipping on you there. Hey, thanks, Roy. Thanks, Myers. It looked like it was falling off his head. There we go.
yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. I just
I
want to make
got
sure you
these.
could hear okay.
At one time, I had 7 caps, and I'd give them to kids. You know, people would see them with Marines on it and everything. They'd send it to me. You know, and this was sent to me, and that's my favorite cap.
Nice.
All right, what was your
So,
question?
so you went back to the States and you formed up with the Fifth, but that's when you met your buddy Cobb.
Yeah, yeah, we was in uh, together and everything. Well, he was real. We were real close, you know. We'd go on Liberty and everything. He'd go to these bars, you know, and drink beer, and I'd drink soda pops.
You weren't
And
into drinking beer. You're smart.
yeah, yeah, my mom told me don't come home no drunkard. Did I tell you that story about my mom seeing me off to the Marine Corps?
No, there was three things she told you not to do.
Oh, there's four things she
Four
told me.
things. That's right. Four things. Pay attention, young men and women out there. Listen to Fred.
Well, when that train stopped in Odessa,
Hmm.
and I was getting hugged and kissed by all those pretty girls and everything, somebody got my ear out there and pulled me around. It was my mother, being a Comanche Indian. She slipped up on me. She took me around the outside of the crowd, you know, behind the depot.
Hmm.
She said, Sonny, they called me Sonny. I was so bright, you know. Well,
Uh-huh.
anyway, she got around there and she put up, she said, Sonny, see these four fingers? She said, now here's I'm telling you what to do. And said something to that effect. She said, when this war's over, you come home to us. When this war's over, you don't come home no drunker. And when this war's over, you don't come home no coward.
Nice.
And you know what the fourth one was?
No tattoos.
Yeah. He said, don't you come home with no tattoos. I think I was probably the only Marine that didn't get to have a tattoo. I don't have one, but you don't come home with no tattoos.
Oh my God, that's funny. So you came back. You came back and you went to the Fifth Division, which was the newly formed in '44, and you guys were training for the big op, which was going back to Iwo Jima.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know where we were going until day of
Right.
op.
Yeah. You didn't know that till you got on the ship.
Yeah. And we was expecting, just take it, just land there, just take it right quick, like.
Yeah.
But
Well, I've got a friend that's on here, Ruby Lucas, and her husband was Jack Lucas.
oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah,
and did you
he,
get a chance to meet him, or how did you
oh
know his
yeah, he
cousin?
was
Or
in he was in the boot camp same time I was, and
oh, was he?
but I didn't know him. He was in another outfit. I didn't know him at all. It,
Did you meet him down there? Did you meet him down there on the ship when he stowed away to get on with the Fifth Division there to hit the Iwo Jima?
well, he was just in another outfit, but I don't know whether he slipped on it or not. I think he just got on the ship, and I really didn't know him till we got on land there.
Oh, okay. I thought I'd heard you tell somebody that you had met. You knew somebody, his cousin or somebody that knew Jack,
Oh
and you
yeah,
guys.
yeah, yeah, and he introduced us and everything.
Okay.
So as he was just he was even younger than me at that time because
Yeah, he was 15 when he joined. He's
yeah,
15 years old. He was, I think, 16 years old when he got the Medal of Honor. Jack Lucas.
yeah,
But there was a story about you were telling about getting the 45 because the Marine Corps, they made you a demolition man and you didn't have a
yeah,
rifle. You had a 45, but they couldn't find you a 45 and your mom bought one for you?
yeah. Well, I couldn't carry 40 pounds of TNT on my back. Well, I could carry it on the front or the back.
Mm-hmm.
And so most of them was carried it on the front. And I was smart. I decided, hey, if a bullet hits this TNT right there, my heart's right there and it might kill me. and so I,
Right.
so that's, I wear it on my back.
Uh-huh.
And, something people don't know. I invented the peanut butter and jam sandwich.
You invented the PBJ?
Yeah, I
All
invented it.
right. You've got to tell us.
And
How did you invent the
people turn
PBJ?
around and shake their head when I tell this story and shake their head and everything right there. And but I told them the story. I'd tell the story.
All right. How
And
did you invent the PBJ?
well, I decided I would uh, wear my stuff on the back, my back, and my regular pack was on on the front of me. Well,
Mm-hmm.
anyway, we'd get up in the morning there in camp in Pendleton, and go through for daylight, and and I saw this peanut butter. There's a peanut butter can, a little bit, looked about like a half-gallon can or smaller. So I
Mm-hmm.
opened that thing up. Nobody ever opened it up. I opened it up. There's about that much oil on top. So
Sure.
I stirred that up. And when you'd go through the line, they had a guy there cutting fresh bread, and he'd ask you how many slices you want. I told him I wanted 3 slices. the first time I went through. Well, I saw that peanut butter there, and then there was orange marmalade. California being a orange growing state, they had orange marmalade on there, and so I make me a peanut butter uh, sandwich and orange marmalade thing. Because when
Uh,
I went through the line, this guy always asked fresh bread just right out of the oven. How many? Well, I went in there and I said, I want six. He looked, oh, you can't eat six slices of bread. I said, yeah, I want six slices of bread. And you're supposed to give me what I asked for. So he gave me six slices of bread. So I got in there and I stirred up peanut butter up,
uh,
I mean, the oil and the peanut butter. And then I would make me a peanut butter sandwich and a orange marmalade sandwich. And then I would go ahead and eat those other two that I had. And I was ordering six slices. Well, when I went through the second time and asked for six, that guy said, "You're not eating this stuff, so I'm not giving you any six." And there was a lieutenant standing there, just happened to be standing. He said, "You give his kids six sandwiches if he asked for it. Give him six slices of bread." And so I had six slices of bread. And so
uh-huh.
I made a peanut butter sandwich, uh, and then made an orange marmalade sandwich, and I put those together, and I'd put them on the front. My, my regular bag was on the front, and I carried the TNT on the back. Well, one day I'd eat those every day. Well, about third or fourth day I was eating them we had creeping and crawling
Mm-hmm.
function. That's where run and hit the deck, then get up and run or shoot and everything. Man, I had those sandwiches there all made out, three of them. One of them was peanut butter, and the other one was uh, orange marmalade. So
And you
when
smashed
we
them all
went to
together.
eat lunch, and it falling on, they just smashed into one big thing. So here I am, and I looked at that guy. So I said, I'm going to eat it anyway. So it was pretty thick, but when I hit it, it went down, because that fresh
Uh-huh.
bread was so fresh, it was soft.
Right.
Man, I ate that. It was good. So the next morning, I ordered six again, and I made myself peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And the
Right.
guys would, what are you doing there, Harv? Well, they called me Tex. I was about the only one from Texas in that group.
Right.
What the heck you're eating there, Tex? I said, it's peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Oh God, how can you stand it? So one guy said, let me have a bite of yours. I said, okay. So he took a bite. So he made himself one right there. And the other guy was looking at him and everything. And next morning, 3 or 4 minutes, and then within about 4 days, everybody was making them. They was making them peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Well,
So you're sending these guys out.
when the war was over, I went home and I'd make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, and the kids would see me eating, and they take it out there and they make it. First thing you know, everybody in the country is eating peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. I tell that story, people shake their head and everything.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
Well,
That's
it was
funny.
true as far as I was concerned.
Hey.
It was true.
Well, tell them the story about your mom buying you a 45.
Well, I was a demolition man. I was supposed to be issued a 45 because I couldn't carry an M1 rifle
Right.
or carbine. So uh, I decided, and the officer said, "Well, we're going to get you a 45. You can carry a 45." So he couldn't find one that wasn't one to be had in at, at Pendleton. And so I called my mom. I sent my mom all of my money. it went allotted to her, and I
Hmm.
just took $5 each month, and it all went to her because my father left us when there was 6 kids left. I
Wow.
had 7 sisters and 1 brother, and and my mom, my daddy left us before I got in the Marine Corps,
Hmm.
and so I just allotted my mom's. Uh, I kept $5 a month, and the rest of it went to her.
So she
And
took that money and she went to the local gun shop.
yeah, yeah, she went to the gun shops and trying to find a 45 caliber pistol, and she went to a couple of hardware stores, where they sold uh, gun. Most of them were rifles, and none of them had any 45 caliber. So she heard about this guy is down there on the depot, behind the depot, and that's where he's set up there. And they let him stay there on depot land. So I went over there and knocked on the door. It was real early. He was still in bed, and and she knocked on the door, and she asked for a pistol, and said no. Well, she said she needed a 45 automatic pistol, and he said, "Yeah, I got one of those. How much you want for it?" Well, he was asking something like $300 or something, because you couldn't buy pistols or anything at that time because it was hard to find.
Right.
And he gave her the price, and she said, "I don't have that much money. I can't afford that." So she turned around and walked. She got about a half a block away from her. And that guy trotted down there to her and said, "Ma'am, why do you need a 45 caliber pistol? That's a pretty strong pistol. You could get a little smaller one than that and
Hmm.
everything."
Thinking it was for her.
He said, "Yeah." He said, "What are you going to do with that pistol?" She said, "My son is in the Marine Corps and he needs a 45 caliber pistol." He said, "He's in the Marine Corps?" And she said, "Yeah." He said, "Come on back. I think we can do business." So he let her have that thing for
Nice.
$80.
Nice. But the amazing thing was she jumped on a bus and went from Odessa to San Diego to give you the pistol.
Yeah. Well, in those days, you had to be you had to get a special permit to ride a bus or anything because buses were loaded down all the time and everything. Well, she didn't have any uh, details showing that she was vital to going, and she uh, saw this guy and he gave her the news. Well, she got on the bus all right, but it zigzagged across New Mexico and Arizona, here, there, and everything. She was on there a lot of hours.
Hmm.
Or when she finally got there, she tried to find a motel or a hotel, or they call them tourist coach in those days.
Hmm.
And she was trying to find a thing, and she couldn't find a place anywhere. And finally, she saw a policeman standing on the corner, kind of directing traffic. That was his job. And she asked him if he, if he knew a place where she could spend the night.
Hmm.
He said, "Well, I don't know of any place." I told her, said, "All these places are full. The hotels are loaded and everything." And so she turned and walked away, and that policeman trotted down there to her, and said, "Why don't you have a place to stay?" And she said, "No, I've got to find a place." And he said, "Well, I sure wish I could find you a place." And she turned around and walked off and got down there. She said about 6 or 7 steps. And he said, why did you come here anyway? And she said, my son is in the Marine Corps and he needs a pistol. And so she had a pistol. He might have arrested her if she was carrying a pistol in her purse. He said, well, I don't know if he went with her to a couple of places and it was all filled up and they couldn't take her or anything. She said she'd sleep on the floor, and they wouldn't let her and everything. So he said, let me call my wife. So they had telephones on poles, that police use, So he said, I'm going to call my wife. And her son had just joined the Navy. So there was a vacant bed there.
Mm-hmm.
So he called the headquarters, the police department. Said, send a car out to us. So a car took us out to his house, and his wife put me in bed and fed me and let her sleep, and then in the morning she got up and there was that policeman had another car take her out to the base, had another police car. And so she's standing at the gate. By the time she got out on the base and everything, it was sun was down and everything. So Carver and I were I call Carver my best friend, so we was on this sea bag detail and we was sitting on top of it and we was going out the gate, and the guard on the gate, he said, is there a guy on there named Harvey?
Yeah.
And Carver heard him. I didn't hear him, He said, hey, they're calling your name. They want you for some reason. So I looked over and there my mom was standing there looking up at me and the guard standing next to her and everything.
Yeah.
And the guy said, the driver said, yeah, just hop on there. And then the Carver was on there too. And so we was on there and they called out my name. And I didn't hear him because I was just about to sleep. That's when I looked down there and saw my mom. And
so you got to hang out with your mom for a couple days before you shipped off.
yeah,
That's
and she
amazing.
stayed there on base, and then he got a special pass to ride the bus straight on through at government cost and took her back. And that's
So,
how I got my pistol.
oh, that's amazing. So, well, fast forward, you got on a ship and you guys hit out to Iwo Jima. Well, you went to
No,
Hawaii first, right? And
no,
then you went to Iwo Jima.
we headed New Caledonia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we went to New Caledonia and trained there for a while, and then went to Iwo.
So everybody always wants to know the mixed feelings. How did you feel that morning that you got up? Did you get sleep that night? Were you able to sleep when you're in the bunks on the ship?
Well, I got seasick, and every time I get on a ship, I get seasick. I always carry a lot of crackers with me,
Mhm.
and if I stayed on there long enough, I'd get used to it, But on another time, we was raided up the island, and we was on a LST,
Mm-hmm.
and they would train us to shoot at planes. They'd come by there and put a target, and then they had a 50 caliber machine gun, or a 30 caliber sometime, and we would have to shoot, because they didn't have enough crew on there to shoot the guns.
Oh, I see. Yeah, protection. Right.
And so I got to talking to the captain out there. He was 21-year-old and was the captain of the ship.
Oh, you told us that. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
well, he told us a lot of stories, and that's when I found out the round bottom ship and
Round
everything.
bottom ship. Sure.
Yeah.
So the ship that you were on going to Iwo Jima, you guys had Higgins boats that you climbed down the side on the nets to get into the Higgins
No,
boats?
we uh, we made a raid. Let's see what we let's see. We landed somewhere. And we did a practice and everything, and that's when we went up the island. See, I can't think of the name of that island. This is for Iwo.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is while I was still in the parachute troops. That's that's when I landed on the Quonset Hut mess hall.
Mm-hmm.
Well, when we were going to Iwo, well, I'd give my beer to Cobber, and he had 16 bottles of beer. That was before they put it in a can, and so he couldn't carry all of them, so he made me throw my
Gas mask?
gas mask away, and carry that beer in it. And he'd thrown his away, and we was on the ship, and Tokyo Rose came on. We was listening to her music, and she would
Uh-huh.
tell a story, and she helped them around instead of breaking it. She thought she was breaking it by reminding. Said, "Well, the little Marines are on their way to hit us again. Now this time they're liable to be taking on more than they can chew, like that."
I hope they have the gas mask.
Yeah, yeah. And she said, "And this time you better make sure you bring your gas masks in." I said, "I didn't have any beer. Didn't have a gas mask. He didn't have a gas mask, and he thought I still had a gas mask. Well, I still did. I just carried 4 or 5 cans of beer for him."
Uh,
I said, "Carver, you threw away your gas mask. What are you going to do?" He said, "I'll just shoot you." I said, "I won't be ready for you." He was kidding, of course.
shoot you and take yours. Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm good.
yeah.
What was the landing like on Iwo that morning that you guys hit? What was the beach? What was the rounds coming in? It was
I was
quiet.
wanting to get
What?
on that island so bad I'd have faced the whole Japanese army. I was seasick all the time, and I
Uh-huh.
was ready to get off of it. But we were in, I forget which way we were in. One was second or third. We weren't first. As we was going in, there's a USS Tennessee, and we had to break the line and go around and come back and get in line over here. Well, that Tennessee let go with all 6 of their 14-inch guns. That was an old ship, so they still just had 14-inch guns. Didn't
Uh-huh.
have 16-inch guns like the later ones. So when that went off, it stunned you. It hurt. Man,
Mhm.
I thought my ears were ruined. Well, it affected that coxswain on that boat too, and he was zigzagging around there, and we wound up way uh, closer to Sarabachi. That was
Mhm.
on the end. Here's Sarabachi, and all the troops were landing here. But we landed right here, nearly against it right there, because that coxswain got hurt, and he couldn't guide, couldn't see very well, and he put us out there. We landed on the beach, wasn't anybody too close to us. So we hit the beach, we ran down there where the others were right there. Well, we was on the beach, and it's not a flat beach, it's just
Slope.
volcanic ashes, and it had steps going up that thing right there. Well, by the time we got back down to our unit, man, they was dropping mortar shells in there that's like rainfall.
Mm-hmm.
And guys were digging in, because some of the officers were killed. It was kind of a mix-up. So Conrad got up there and he said, dig in. And they started digging. He said, let's get off of this beach because, when a shell hit, it goes out and up, a mortar shell. And so we was on the side of this beach, and those shells were exploding down there, and they'd come up and knocking out a lot of guys. So Carver stood up and got everybody off that particular beach, and we ran like mad. I ran about 400 yards, I guess, and I'm on the other beach on the other side.
Really?
Yeah.
So you guys had come around.
I was leading over because I was in high school. I was a miler on the track team, so I knew how to run. And we got on that about halfway across the island, and I could see the other beach right there, real close to us, And so Cobbers had everybody dig in, and so we began to dig in right there on the beach, and first thing you know is everybody was coming up off the beach after so our lieutenant told us, he radioed and told them to get everybody off the beach in our outfit. And we got on the beach.
Did you get the Silver Star earlier in another campaign, or was it at Iwo? Oh, no. Folks, we just lost Fred. I apologize. It was just starting to get good. Let's hold on a second and see if they aren't able to bring him in and bring Fred back. There he is. Okay. We lost you there for a second, Fred. The Japs got us.
Oh.
So, did you get the Silver Star in the prior campaign or on Iwo Jima?
No, Iwo Jima.
Tell them about that experience. What happened with that?
Well, it was dark of the night right there, and we lost contact with the people on our right side. So the lieutenant sent me and two other guys down there to make contact, and we went down there and we didn't find anybody. So by the time we getting back, it was getting, the sun hadn't gotten up, but it was light, and they could see. And so we're going up there, and this big guy in front and we was three of us in line, and I was bringing up the rear, and a Jap Nambu opened up on us. Well,
and for everybody that doesn't know, the Nambu magazine, or the Nambu, was a 25 caliber machine gun.
26 caliber.
26 caliber machine gun, belt magazine fed.
Yeah.
And it'd shoot quick.
Yeah. If I had to go to war, I'd want their Nambu machine gun. It was great. Those things we'd find one that'd be full of dirt and mud and everything, but it's still fire.
Uh-huh.
Our Tommy guns, get a little dirt on it and it quits. And I decided, man, if I have to go to war, I'm gonna get me a Nambu machine gun.
So you were going across that draw and you heard the
Well,
distinctive
well,
bolt.
we left and we got lost trying to find that other outfit.
Hmm.
And this acting corporal, he's a big guy. I won't tell you his name, but he was a football star and everything. And he was leading us, and I can't think of that guy's name right now.
Joe, the guy that got shot was Joe, right? That you
Yeah,
rescued.
Joe something. Yeah, yeah. Well, anyway, I heard this Jap. I was close enough. I heard him cock his machine gun, and I said, "Hit the deck!" And just as I hit the deck, shot. Well, the guy in front of me didn't fall fast enough. He got hit, and he went down. Then when that guy used up all the rounds in his things, I knew he was going to be taking a few seconds to get that thing changed again. So I
Right.
jumped up and ran, and the guy in front of me had been hit, and so I was going to get his rifle, because he carried a rifle. I thought when he was hit, I thought he'd been killed. So I was going to get his rifle. Well, he was laying on the rifle, and I saw it. So I grabbed it with my left hand and grabbed his cartridge belt and drug him as fast as I could, and stopped and fell on the ground. Uh, and that before the Jap got a good aim on us, and he shot over us. So I got up again and ran with him, but it opened up on me again, and we fell in a little deflation there, just like and kind of on the side of a hill, and Jap would shoot at us, but we were low enough in that deflation, and it hit like we were here. That bullets were just hitting it. If we held up our hand or anything, it'd shoot at it. And so here we were, trapped, and the big guy ran. I thought maybe he had been shot or something, because I never did see him or hear him after they shot that first blast.
And how long were you guys trapped there with the Japanese covering you?
Well, it was daylight, and it was over the sun was over there, straight over our head. So we was in there several hours, and I looked at that guy. He had a thermite grenade. It's one
Ooh,
of those. It wasn't didn't throw out. So it just made. And we carried those thermite grenades if we was gonna ruin one of their big guns or anything. We'd just drop that in a barrel, and when it would go off, it would melt, ruin a cannon. And so he had one of those on his belt, and he wasn't supposed to carry anything but his rifle. Uh, wasn't supposed to carry anything that would rattle or make noise.
right.
And so I looked at that thing. He was laying on his back, and he had a slight wound on his side or something that just grazed him and so forth. So he was laying on his stomach, and I looked at his belt. There was one of those thermite grenades out there had hit that thermite hand grenade,
Right.
and I was afraid it was going to go off. And so I took my. He had it on his belt,
Cartilage belt.
cartridge belt, and so I took my knife out and was able to reach over and cut that thing slightly.
Yeah, yeah.
and every once in a while they'd shoot that pistol, that machine gun again, and it was hitting. We was hearing it hitting just about that much higher over. Maybe you hear it British, it really made a sound when it went over us and everything, ripping the air. Well, I finally got that thing cut off. I cut his belt off and threw it over there out of the hole. And sure enough, that thing went off and laid there and just burned, just melted,
Yeah.
And it was that guy kept wanting to get up and everything, and I was having to hold him down and so forth. And I told him I was going to shoot him. I had my pistol, I said, if you try to get out of this hole one more time, I'm going to shoot you before the Japs do.
Uh-huh.
Oh, Harvey, you're going to go to hell. And so we laid there until several hours, I guess. And they let us stay there because they knew somebody would be coming to get us,
Right.
And well, that was what I was thinking. And sure enough, they found us, and they were behind an embankment up here. Rocks, lava rocks was stacked up there. And they kept hollering my name. When they got close enough, I heard them and hollered at them. I told them not to come any closer right now. And the lieutenant said, what is happening now? I said, we got us pinned down up there. Don't come down here now because there's several of those Nambus right there. And he said, well, where are the stations and everything? So I took something and threw it down there about where it was. Man, had the whole platoon right there. A lot of them had BARs, and they just soaked us good. It was really soaked everything around there. Then they ran down there and got us and drug us out. But
so you guys were able to shoot. They were able to shoot the positions, get you guys extracted.
Yeah. They probably knocked it out because they really put a lot of ammunition in those areas.
Right.
So they got us out all right.
Well, bring us up to, because we're about an hour and a half now. Bring us up to where you got wounded. What day was that on?
It was the 9th day or 9th night. It was on the, we were assigned 3 to a hole. Now, we didn't have to dig foxholes because there's shell holes everywhere you went. You had to zigzag through the shell holes. They had those 16-inch guns going off, and the Japs had mortar shells down there. So there were holes all over the place. So there were 3 of us. We had a corporal in charge of us. The other 2, there was 3 of us, and he had charge of 3 of us. So he was assigned to a hole, and he said, we're going to take turns, and I'll take the first turn, and Harvey will take the second turn and everything. So he said, Harvey, give me your pistol. I said, why? He said, well, it's easier. I can handle it. And so here I am without a weapon. He had an M1, and he took that pistol.
And this is the pistol your mom gave you?
Yeah. And so I let him have it, He used his rank to get the pistol,
Uh-huh.
He told me he was going to put me on report and I said, well, I thought maybe it was a good idea if the guy that was on watch had a pistol,
Yeah.
And during the night, I was laying on on top of the bags and everything. You couldn't lay flat on the ground at
Mhm.
Iwo because that heat from the steam from that volcanic action underground, it was just too hot to lay on the ground. It was boiling. So you put your uh, bags down and your
Mhm.
blanket, and you slept on that if you had a blanket. And so I was during the night. I was sleeping, and I heard three fast shots go off right close to me. So I jumped up. I didn't have a weapon. He said, "We got a, what do you call it?" He said, "We got a characters up there." I said, "Can you get a shot at him?" He said, "No." And so he and the other guy woke up too. You know, when I did, he carried a M1 himself, so he jumped up and they did something. The hole, they got in another part of the hole or got out of the hole or something. I don't know how they got out of the chute and everything. So I stood up and I heard the thump. I'd heard that thump a lot of times. The hand grenade, hand grenade, pulled a pin on you, and then you had to hit something to make it powder train to start. Well, anyway, I heard that thump and I knew I was in trouble. I didn't have anything to defend myself. If I had, I could run up there and shot him, you know, because I could see the top of his head as he moved around.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Where do you go? Oh, there he is in there. Well, anyway, uh,
So the guy lobs a hand grenade at you.
I was up there and I heard that thump. And you know, you pull the pin, they had to hit something. He evidently had a rifle butt. Because when I heard that thump, I knew I was in trouble. So I was standing there, and when it came over with right there, I was able to get it and shovel it right out of the hole. And then I hit the deck then, and then I knew he was going to do it again, you know, because he knew that hand grenade didn't get us that he threw in the first time. So
Mhm.
I stood there ready, and I decided I'd try to catch it. And here it came, and I was able to throw it out, just shovel it out real quick, and it exploded. But he was here, and I had to shovel it like that, and it didn't affect him. So I stood there, and I heard another thump, and I knew I was going to get another hand grenade. When it came, I saw it coming, and I bobbled it, and it hit me at my feet, and that's what took me out of the war. And
So when you were wounded, how long did it take before the medics were able to get you back down to the shoreline?
well, I crawled out of the hole and was traveling, you know, and I was trying to get a corpsman. Now those other two guys, they should have stayed there and helped me, or because that corporal had my pistol, and he should have gotten up there and shot that guy that was throwing the hand grenades.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was able to crawl out, and I was having to use my elbows and pulling myself along. And I began to have visions. My girlfriend would get up here, Fred, you got to get some help. And I had this vision and could hear them saying it, you know. Or I thought I was hearing them. And then my mother came up and she really jumped on me for being a coward. She said, "You're a coward. You get out and save yourself." That was what I thought I was hearing, And so I got there to the hole and I hollered in there. I was trying to think of the name, the corpsman. Well, anyway, I got there and I knew his name and I hollered in and I said, "This is Harvey and I'm coming in." And they were scared, because the Japs would do anything to get in the hole, And so I finally crawled up there and they grabbed me and one of the guys said, "Oh, his ass is like hamburger meat." And with that, I fainted. Next thing I know, I'm in a ditch. It's been a long ditch that they'd use tractors to make it with, and they was working on me, and they was taking my shoes off, and I loved my parachute boots. I thought, man, those boots were great. So I was laying there, and he was working on me and everything. He's trying to take my other boot off, and they already had the other boot off, and it was ruined. The sole was hanging down, and it was just torn up good because that thing went right off as I made contact, kicking it out.
Right.
Well, anyway, he worked on me for about an hour there, and finally got bandages on me and everything. And then they was going to take me out to a hospital ship, but all the hospital ships had filled up, and it had to go to Guam and other places, to get rid of them because it was loaded down and didn't have room. And so they put me on a Higgins boat,
Mm-hmm.
and there were 4 of us on a big board, and it was just lined up there, and they had the cables up there, and they was going to take us up board this LST. They had a crane and everything, and it went up got about 4 feet above the deck of that Higgins boat we was on. There's 4 of us on this big platter and everything. The guy on the end, the ship, the board we was on, bumped against the side of that ship, that LST, and one of those guys went to drink. One of those guys. I guess there was about 10 sailors, and man, they went in that water. Was going to get him and everything. But he's on one of these steel stretchers, and he went down too fast, and they couldn't find him. But all those guys, man, they was coming off there diving and everything. Those sailors were going to save him.
Yeah.
He didn't make it.
And your buddy Cobb got wounded. Did he get wounded about the same time?
Probably the same time, because he had those beers, and he was.
He still was hauling the beers around Iwo Jima.
Yeah, he was about out there maybe 50 or maybe 100 yards from me. We usually camped out at night, but he was put out in front there. He one night he was, you had to put something down thick to lay on, because if you laid flat on a volcanic ash, that's heat, steam coming up, or it just scalds you,
Right.
So he was on that thing, and the Jap came in there, and it was bayoneting him. They killed the guy that was with him, and then they turned on him. he was laying under a poncho and they didn't see him in time. So
He got one guy with his K-bar, if I remember right. Cobb killed one Jap soldier
I
with his
forgot.
K-bar.
Yeah, yeah, his K-bar was sticking in a volcanic ash right next to him. So he got that and hit this one Jap. And this other Jap turned around and was fixed to say, and he wasn't able to get it. And Cobber got him before he, well, he was wounded. He had 3 bayonet things in there, and one Jap put his bayonet through here. You know, he threw up his arms like that.
Yeah.
And he put it through here, came out here and got this muscle right here. Another one got him in the chest up here. And so he was bleeding. So they were carrying him back to the first aid station. You know, it was still dark. And he made a mistake. He said, guys, when you get back, there's about 8 cans of beer. Plop, it dropped him, went back. They drank the beer, then they can't find him when he goes back. And so
I would have killed those sons of bitches.
Yeah, and it was daylight. Well, it got light enough that they could find him and take him back.
Oh my God! To survive and then die, waiting for your stretcher bearers to get you down to the beach.
Yeah, well, they finally got him down to the beach, and that's where he was. He had those bayonet wounds in him, and so they got him fixed up, and I didn't know anything about what happened because I couldn't find. I tried to ask anybody if they'd seen Cobber, you know, other guys that had been wounded. And I was in that hospital at Ada Heights in Pearl Harbor.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's amazing your recovery. So as you went through all these different hospitals, Cobber ended up. Well, you met Harold Lombard, the man with no face. You were roommates with him.
Yeah, I wound up in the hospital. They had me in a private room, and I was in a full body cast, as I appeared, and my arms were free, but that's where I was. And then they brought in another guy, and he had his head completely covered with bandages and everything. And that turned out to be the guy that lost his face. And I was
Harold.
feeling sorry for myself, you know, until I saw him. God, when I saw him, he didn't want people to see him. He wouldn't come in there. People come in there and they'd want to talk to him. He wouldn't answer them or let them in. He told the nurse, "Don't let anybody in here to see me." He didn't want to be seen like that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Cobber came up there, and Cobber was like this. He was bandaged up with his arms like here, and he and Cross had gotten through without being wounded. Well, he got nicked one time, but he didn't even report that. And so Cobber came in there and, "Fred, are you in this war?" Just loud. He had a voice that would carry, you know. And the nurse tried to get him quiet. Said, "He's in this room down in the hall." So he went down there, and the nurse was working on the other guy. Well, I was laying there for it seemed maybe 2 days because I lost all track of time. Night and day didn't have any meaning to me. But they brought this guy in, and he was always turned away from me and had a bandage on his face. I was feeling real sorry for myself. And they came in there to change his bandages, and they took them off, and the nurse turned them over so I could see him. And then I saw him and I quit feeling sorry for myself. He didn't
Yeah.
have a place at all.
Well, I know you were banged up, and I know you were cut up, and you lost a lot of. You gave a lot of body parts to Uncle Sam. That's for sure. So
Oh
I could
yeah.
understand
Yeah. Oh,
your dilemma. Something to
excuse me,
drink.
I'll drink.
You bet. And if you guys don't know, Harold Lambert, they 1961 they did an article in Life magazine about Herbert. No, Harold Lambert, and they did a whole article about the man with no face,
Yeah.
and all the pictures were taken from behind as you see him playing with his kids, stuff like that. But he ended up surviving. But this was your roommate, which was amazing
Yeah.
story in itself.
Well, he was there, and he didn't want anybody to come in there except the nurse, and she had to come in there and change his bandages.
Yeah. Well, how many operations did you have overall for your recovery?
I have no idea how many it was, but I'd say it's probably 50 or 60, you know.
Yeah. And your final, I was telling my best friend Michael Costanza, who we had breakfast this morning. I was telling him your story because after Katrina, he was working down there in New Orleans doing the rebuilding, and he was actually staying over there on the base. They had opened up, and he was with a friend of his who had a space on the base. But you were actually your last station was in New Orleans, working on a farm and feeding the chickens, right?
Yeah.
And Cobber shows up and he's discharged out of the Marine Corps, but he pretends he's still in so he can go
Yeah,
hang out with you.
yeah, he was pinned in, and he tried to get down there. And he couldn't get a bus ticket, and he was going to get a motorcycle and ride it down there. Before he did that, he got a ride. And what he had done, he had called my mom, and she told me that she told him that I was in a hospital in New
Mm-hmm.
Orleans.
Yep. So you guys got to hang out, and what a neat story because then you left from there together once you got discharged, and here and Cobb ended up joining the Air Force. You guys both went back to school, and he joined the Air Force and became a pilot.
Yeah. Well, what happened? His mother had a friend or a second cousin or something like that that was a officer in the Air Force, and she told him that Cobber was working in a fingerprint department in Washington, D.C. Well, he went over there to see Cobber, and Cobber, he asked Cobber when he had to leave, he said, Cobber, is there anything you can do for me? I mean, is there anything I can do for you? And I'll take care of it if I can. And Carver told me, I'd like to get in the Air Force. Well, he was on 100% disability at that time. But that guy had enough rank, they got him in the Air Force. 3 days later, he was on a plane going to San Angelo.
Uh huh.
And I was coaching football over in, well, I was in El Paso. No, I was in Odessa. Odessa, I was coaching football.
Uh huh.
And he came to see me, and we had the day off. He said, let's go swimming. I said, let's go over to San Angelo and go swimming. I said, you can swim in a river over there, and they have swings. You can swing out there and high dive and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So we went over there, and there was a lady, a teacher, had a bunch of kids with her out to take her class over there, and they were swimming. And we was teaching them how to swing out there and dive, you know, and everything. And so she invited us over, and she fixed chili for us outside and had all the sides. And we had about 6 or 7 kids with us. And we went over for that, and that's where.
Well, we got to wrap the show up, but I've got to wrap the show up with the story I called this Tyrone Power taught me how to shave. Tell them the story on how you met this handsome movie star who became a Marine aviator. But you met him right here. Here he is. He inducted into the Marine Corps. Tyrone Power, famous movie star.
Yeah, he joined the Marine Corps. He was being drafted, but he chose the Marine Corps. And he was we were living in tents in San Diego at that Marine base.
Mm-hmm.
And we had to shave every day. And I was in there shaving. I didn't know how to shave. I'd never shaved before. And
so you didn't know how to mix up the
make
paste?
Foam up, or I put a bunch of water in my cup there, and this guy next to me, man, had a big face on. I said, "How do you get that stuff to stay on your face and stand up?" So he poured all the water out of mine and mixed it up for me, and was painting it on my face, And I looked at him. I said, "Are you from Odessa?" He said, "Odessa? Where's Odessa?" I said, "Well, Odessa, Texas." He said, "Not hardly. I'm from," he gave a name. I forgot what it was now.
Uh-huh.
And that's when I met him. I didn't know he was a movie star thing at that time, but I really liked him. And about 3 nights later, there was a big commotion. We were in huts at that time on Marine Corps base. And of course, I'd been overseas and everything, and was in a new outfit and everything. So we was there, and we heard this laughing and shouting and everything. So I got up out of bed and went down there, and it was Tyrone Powers. Some guy kept needling him, everything. So he invited Tyrone to come outside. So we went out there, and I got to see the fight. It lasted about like that. That guy squared off at him and everything. He hit him, just knocked him cold. He really laid one on him. He didn't have any more trouble with anybody.
He knocked the guy out. Tyrone did.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, he went on to become a pilot with our future C-130 squadron called VMGR 352. He was a West Coast pilot, and you met him out in the war later on, didn't you?
Yeah, I saw him, and I said, "You remember me?" He said, "No, not hardly." I said, "You taught me how to shave." He said, "You're that kid from Texas, aren't you?" "What was the name of that town?" I said, "Odessa." "Yeah, Odessa." And he was married to Annabelle, or one of those actresses.
Uh-huh.
And she came out there about 5 or 6 days later, and we couldn't get clothes hangers because they quit making clothes hangers, for the war effort. All the metal went in the guns and everything. But she went over to the studio where she was working, and brought out a bunch of clothes hangers, steel clothes hangers.
Uh-huh.
She had an old wood side, what do they call those?
Like a Woody?
Yeah,
like a station wagon with the wood panels on
a
the
station wagon, what it was. And it was made out of, had wooden back on it.
Right.
And we would go there, and a guy would take out 2 clothes hangers and hand us to us, and she would shake our hands. And so I think her name was Annabelle or something like that.
Right. Well, what a story. How cool was that?
What?
Your brush for fame, and you didn't even know it because the guy had a full lather on his face.
Yeah. Well,
But-
he wasn't. I really didn't know he was a real outstanding one. I just heard his name. I don't remember whether I'd ever seen him or not.
Oh, that is
But
so funny.
I was on a little island down there, and I went over to the mess hall, and it was in the morning. I went over there to see if I could get a donut or something like that.
Hmm.
And he and about three pilots came in, and when he went by me, I touched his side and I said, "You remember me?" He said, "Well, let's see. You're from that kid from Texas, aren't you? What was the name of that town?" I said, "Odessa."
Odessa.
Yeah, Odessa. I remember that. So he said, "How's everything going and everything?" So
Good man.
he remembered helping me.
Well, Fred, I can't thank you enough for coming on tonight. And for those that don't know, Fred is moving back to Kerrville. So here's the deal, Fred. When you get your new address in Kerrville, Texas, I will send that address out to everyone, and they can then, like in the book that I bought, you had this really nice card, and you could write a little note to you. But what I'll do is I'll send that address out if you don't mind, and anyone who wants to buy a book, $20, right?
Yeah.
And a self-addressed stamped envelope with that be big enough to hold a good-sized book there. And well, actually, if you have a price, you could say $26 and ship it back or something. But
No.
they'd have to just write you and get a hold of you to buy a book because we want you taken care of, Fred.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Let me tell one more thing
Oh, by all
the
means.
war.
By all means.
You know what saved me was fear. Just dead gut fear.
Right.
When you get scared and with fear, that throws adrenaline into your brains and into your muscles, your whole body, and you think better and react faster. And that's what saved me in the war was fear. I wasn't brave. I was feared. I was scared. And that's what saved me. Because with that fear, I was able to react to what was
Right.
going on around me. So I don't mind telling people I was scared.
Yeah.
So I'm really not a hero. I just reacted out of fear.
Fred, we are but mere midgets standing on the giant shoulders of Marines and men like you from your generation. And I can't thank you enough for everything you've done for the Marine Corps. Your bravery out there on those islands at
It
such a
wasn't
young age.
bravery, it was fear that saved me.
Your fear and your determination to keep our country safe. Yeah, you build a legacy that it's really, really hard to step in those big shoes you have, but we really appreciate it, sir.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate it. And Carver and I when we were talking after the war, I mean, before we got out of Carver said, people are going to want to hear the war stories. Nobody wants to talk about it.
Hmm.
So let's tell people just how it was and everything. So I'll answer any question you ask, and I'll tell you the stories. And I'll tell you that I was scared. And Carver said, I wasn't scared. And I said, oh, don't tell me that. I right beside you, you were shaking about as fast as I was.
Oh, well, Fred, thank you, sir. And maybe we could have you on in the future if you come back up. Um, Definitely want to thank Myers Jackson and Roy. If you guys all get over there, Mark Donahue from Roll Call and Roy from Roll Call, if you guys want to lean in and get a shot, hold on a second here.
Who's taking our picture? Oh, we are on
Roy.
this.
Yeah, get on in the picture. Mitch wants us all in the picture.
He wants us in the picture.
All right, you got us, Mitch?
Yeah, you can still hear. All right, I got a picture of you guys. Outstanding. Thanks, you all. Appreciate it.
Send me over a dozen of those.
Yeah, I will. I will. Hey, if you guys,
I'll put a picture like that in the book with the.
somebody asked, real quick, what your loadout was. How much? They asked how much were you carrying in your backpack? 3 days supply, food supply. I mean, how much were you guys carrying when you hit the island?
Well, the first time we went into action, we were still using the old canned food. You know, you had a can of meat and then a can of something else, and then they had some kind of dessert can, and you had to open up those cans. And it was sorry food, you know. It was. Then they came out with the K ration, and
Mm-hmm.
they were a lot lighter to carry, and they said you hunger faster than the old canned food.
Yep. Hey, good question. Whatever happened to your pistol? Will Grant wants to know. Did you ever get your pistol back from that guy, or did you ever catch him and say, "Give me my damn money back"?
I never saw or heard of him again, so I didn't have a pistol. I couldn't find him or anything like that because I wanted my pistol. My mother bought that thing for me from.
Well, unfortunately,
I sent her money, and she took in ironing, you know, because there were 6 kids still at home.
yeah, but unfortunately, when you get wounded and they start cutting everything off, it just gets stacked over there. So I doubt even if you'd had your pistol, it probably would have gotten reissued to somebody else. That's a good question, though.
Yeah. Well, my mother had to take in ironing. She worked, you know, you used to help yourself in laundry for the old gas running machines. And she managed one of those to support there were 6 girls.
Right.
I had one brother, and she held that family together.
She did a fine job.
After my dad left, I had no use for him.
Did you ever see him later after the war? Ever? Did you ever get reacquainted with your dad?
Yeah, my sister, one of my sisters got hurt, and she was in the hospital in Midland. What she was doing was she was with her husband, and they were going from Odessa to San Angelo to fish, and they had to pick up. They had their motor back in the back of the pickup, and a 5-gallon can of gasoline. And there was a drunk guy rammed them, set that thing fire, and she was killed in the hurt real badly in the fire, and she was in the hospital, and he heard that I was over there in Midland. That's where she was.
Mm-hmm.
And he brought 3 of his buddies over, wanted to see his hero son. And he came in, and I said, "You just turn around and get your out of here now."
Mm. Well, tell us, bad situation. I know the family situation was bad. John Basilone, you had an opportunity to meet Medal of Honor recipient John Basilone. He was in the 5th Division with you.
Well, no, he wasn't in our outfit, but I'd heard.
You had seen him after he passed away when he was down at the beach. You were going back for ammo or something.
Yeah, there's a bunch of young Marines standing around there, and man, they was dropping those shells in there, and the sergeants were trying to break them up and everything. So I got up there and asked one of them, I said, "What happened?" He said, "Barcelona just got killed. A mortar shell hit real close to him and killed him."
Yeah.
And they had a poncho over him at that time because they didn't want people looking at him because he was cut up pretty badly.
That's pretty tough because he was revered.
Oh yeah, he was a good Marine. They said. I mean, I told you about the fight he had, didn't I?
No.
I was in boot camp, and we heard all this laughing and yelling and whooping and everything. So I jumped out, just put on my pants, ran out in the dark, and there was a bunch of guys down in about 3 tents, not tents but huts. We was in huts the second time I was in that camp, and these 2 guys squared off. He reared back and hit that guy right in the face, and that guy was knocked out cold.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody cheered him and everything. He was well liked,
You did tell us that story. That's funny. Well, you know what? It is getting late, and it's 9. I know you got to hit the rack because you're driving down to Kerrville tomorrow. But Fred, I can't thank you enough for joining us tonight, and we'd like to bring you back on for some Q&A down in the future if that's okay with you.
I can hardly wait.
Okay. All right. Well, listen, you have a great night and you drive safe.
It was worth it.
Yeah. Well, I've got a Tall Tales with taco coin that I'm going to send to you. So as soon as I get your new address, I'm going to take care of you.
Okay.
All right. Fred, you have a great night and God bless you. Okay.
All right.
Take care, sir. Hey, folks, I hope you enjoyed it. Those, I see 12 solid listeners checking this out. I can't thank you guys for hanging around long enough. I mean, if Fred wanted to talk for 4 hours, I let him talk for 4 hours, but unfortunately, he definitely has to hit the rack because it's early journey down to Kerrville, Texas tomorrow. But I hope you enjoyed this special Tall Tales with Taco, especially with Fred Harvey. And like I said, we'll get his address out to you if you want to write Fred. You want to write to him, get a copy of his book. It is an awesome book. I had to look and see if there was a ghostwriter. Fred wrote this, and he had some friends help editing, but the tone, the voice, the words, I aspire to be as good as Fred one day. I'll tell you that. That is my goal in life. And if I can be as spry as that guy at 97 years old and still with it, then I tell you what, I've done well in my life. You guys enjoy yourself. Have a great night. Once again, Chuck Ziegenfuss, thank you, Chuck, for donating your spot tonight so that we could get Fred onto the show. Michael Costanza, once again, thank you for all your help, brother. I really love you. You provide so much stuff to help out the show, and I really do appreciate it. You guys have a great night. We'll see you next Tuesday. I've got folks lined up all the way through October. We're going to have some fun. So just stand by for another Tall Tales. Please do me a favor. If you share this, write in the comments, tell your friends, subscribe, like, and join the show. So you all have a great night, and we'll catch you next Tuesday. Hoorah.